An indifferent treatment by Washington slipped in the back door. Now he's the West's best hope. This will, of course, be Bill Clinton's first summit, and the president suggests it's in the U.S. interest to make sure it's not Boris Yeltsin's last. Charles Bierbauer, CNN, Vancouver.
And stay with CNN for complete coverage of the Vancouver summit. CNN also plans live coverage of the Clinton-Yeltsin news conference after the summit. That's at 4:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. In other news, word today that the U.S. and Russia are planning a joint unmanned mission to Mars. A Russian news agency says the mission is set for October of next year. A Russian spacecraft will carry 2 small landers with probes to analyze the Martian surface and atmosphere. The next U.S. mission to space is set for Tuesday. The crew of the shuttle Discovery arrived in Florida late yesterday to prepare for the flight. The 5 astronauts will be working in 2 round-the-clock shifts to study the Earth's ozone layer and do a number of solar experiments. For the second time in 2 days, Senate Democrats have failed to push President Clinton's $16 billion jobs bill past Republican opposition. The Republican minority has used delaying tactics to bottle up the bill for 1 week now. A short time ago, the Senate fell 8 votes short of ending the filibuster. Republicans say they will approve the package, but only if Democrats trim what they call pork barrel fat. The bill would provide money for road building, summer jobs for teenagers, and other job-creating programs. The United Nations Security Council is meeting in emergency session today. Council members are discussing today's blocking of a UN aid convoy by Serbs in eastern Bosnia-Herzegovina. The UN has been trying to feed and evacuate civilians in the besieged city of Srebrenica. UN officials say Serb generals have promised the convoy will be allowed to continue its journey tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Bosnian Serb parliament has rejected a peace plan to divide Bosnia into 10 semi-autonomous provinces. Authorities say the next move in the Waco standoff is up to cult leader David Koresh. We'll have the latest from federal agents when Newsday continues. Also, money is not the only barrier separating children from vaccinations. Stay with us.
It's Toyota's Simply Irresistible sales event. Your Toyota dealer invites you to check out Camry. Simply Irresistible. Camry, one of the 10 best cars you can own. Camry, the best car built in the U.S. Simply Irresistible. The incredibly quiet, comfortable, powerful Camry. It's Toyota quality at its best. Simply Irresistible. So hurry and see your Toyota dealer now, because Toyota deals are just simply irresistible.
Impossible! How can you store 8 rolls of Charmin in that tiny space?
By squeezing, Chief.
You see, moms need more storage space.
So we're taking 8 rolls of Charmin and squeezing them.
Great idea! We'll call it Space Maker.
So you can store twice as much in about the same space, so you don't run out.
And it pops back out again.
Glad I thought of it.
Try new Charmin Face Maker.
Remember, if it's not squeezably soft, it's not Charmin.
I really didn't want my husband to color his gray hair.
But then I discovered this, the hair coloring called Just for Men.
And now he looks better than ever.
Simply apply Just for Men, and in 5 minutes, rinse. Just for Men blends away the gray for a totally natural look. No wonder 8 out of 10 women prefer the Just for Men look to the gray look.
It's like you took off 10 years.
And in just 5 minutes.
Just for Men. She'll love the way you look.
Now at Goodyear, you can save 50% on the second tire when you buy 1 tire at the regular price. That's half off Goodyear Premium All-Season Radials for cars and light trucks. Any way you look at it, you save. Only at Goodyear now.
I'll never go back to denture pastes or powders again.
Here's why. C-Bond Denture Adhesive. 2 powerful adhesives in a soft, micro-thin seal bonds dentures to your gums, can hold comfortably all day.
You'll never go back to pastes or powders again.
C-Bond.
Federal agents say the standoff in Waco, Texas has entered a cooling-off period. After allowing 2 lawyers to talk with cult leader David Koresh inside the compound yesterday, authorities say the next move is up to Koresh. And the upcoming Passover holiday could prompt Koresh to make a move.
He first announced that that he had received divine guidance that he was supposed to take additional wives. And that was announced during Passover. He followed that up with actually taking additional wives during other Passover times. So these are times when either his position within those of the Branch Davidians has changed, or in fact where he gets additional messages from God.
Despite the so-called cooling-off period, authorities say they will continue to use loud music and floodlights to pressure Kosch to surrender. President Clinton's health care task force is getting some help on questions of medical ethics. A task force member has confirmed the existence of an independent ethics panel made up of legal and medical experts. According to today's Los Angeles Times, the panel will set up a values framework for health care reform. The experts may offer advice on issues such as abortion funding and health care rationing. The Clinton administration wants to make immunizations available to all children under the age of 2 free of charge. But as CNN's Rhonda Rowland reports, some doctors say money is not the only barrier to proper vaccinations.
All right, darling, here we go.
Only about half of all 2-year-olds in the U.S. are immunized.
These diseases can not only make your child sick for a little while, but it can cause blindness, deafness, and even death in some cases.
The unvaccinated come from all backgrounds.
Vaccinations affect all, and the problems are not solely limited to the poor. We have not seen high coverage rates essentially anywhere.
A $1 billion a year program introduced by the Clinton administration would pay for the vaccine.
While most major countries assure free vaccines for all their children, the United States does not.
If the program is approved, the U.S. government would buy vaccine and distribute it to public health clinics where it could be administered for free, and private physicians who could charge a minimal fee for administration.
The prices of vaccines have risen astonishingly from $24 a few years ago to more than $240 today, which has meant that for many families it is a financial burden.
A spokesperson for Merck & Company, one of 4 U.S. vaccine makers, says 11 states already have taxpayer-funded vaccine distribution, and immunization rates are not much higher than the U.S. average. A number of barriers keep vaccination rates low. Public health clinics may be overcrowded and understaffed. Some doctors don't accept Medicaid. Eilena Williams has faced those barriers. She's single, works full-time, and doesn't drive. Her daughter is a year behind in getting immunized.
She needs some shoes. She needs clothes and stuff like that. So you're rushing around trying to get everything done that one day that you have off, you know. And that's real hard.
Even if families have access to health care, physicians may choose not to vaccinate. It's called a missed opportunity.
They have a runny nose or a cold or a cough. They're not particularly ill. Many physicians and healthcare providers don't give the immunization on that at that time also. And there's no reason not to.
One feature of the Clinton proposal is a vaccine registry to remind parents and monitor vaccination rates. But the administration has yet to reveal how the program will be financed. Rhonda Rowland, CNN Medical News.
News from Medicine is brought to you by Bristol-Myers Squibb Company, makers of Nuprin. Nup it with Nuprin, the body pain medicine.
Jimmy and Chris for Nuprin.
Jimmy, relax. Have some fun.
Who says I'm not having fun?
You can't go on forever.
Want to bet?
Admit it. Sometimes it hurts.
Ooh. So I Nup it. Nup it. And it's gone.
I Nup it too.
Nuprin works for me.
It's strong medicine.
Some people know how to stay in shape.
Why, thank you, Jimmy.
Nup it. With Nuprin, the body pain medicine. Now from the makers of Nuprin, Nup it with new backache for lower back pain.
Tonight, 25 years after his assassination, one question remains. Who really killed Martin Luther King? And why? Can this real-life murder mystery be solved? Both sides with Jesse Jackson, 9 p.m. Eastern tonight.
Business travelers are on the move. Going places, closing deals, making it happen. And so is Marriott. Now you can save up to 30% off our regular corporate rates. Just purchase your room 7, 14, or 21 days in advance. Jump in.
Hi, I'm Bill Marriott. You can bet I'll make it happen for you.
To save up to 30%, call 1-800-228-9290.
Oh!
Oh, this dry skin itch. What can stop it fast?
You need lightning fast Lanacaine. Lanacaine starts working in a flash. Lanacaine cream actually works on contact with the itch nerves that cause every itch. This Vaseline Intensive Care can't. Jergens can't. These can't. And Lanacaine Deep moisturizes to help heal rough, dry skin.
The itch is gone, and so fast.
For the fastest way to stop every itch, get lightning fast Lanacaine.
Some people are still wondering if PIP does multicolor printing. The answer is yes, we do a little. Enough to fill this little football field every day. Color printing. One more reason PIP printing is the best business printer in the business.
Doctors say a British woman's liver transplant went well, even though the plane carrying the liver crashed en route to the hospital and the liver was underwater for 1 hour. The light plane from Scotland lost its engine and crashed into the sea off Edinburgh. British Navy divers found the liver in 20 feet of water and rushed it to the hospital. The pilot and passenger escaped with minor injuries. A 4-year-old girl has left a Pittsburgh hospital for the first time in her life. Charlie Forstar was discharged yesterday, 5 months after a multiple transplant operation. A birth defect made it impossible for her to absorb enough nutrients from food, so doctors had to give her a new stomach, intestines, liver, and pancreas. A 9-year-old boy has survived a frightening experience in Los Angeles. Firefighters pulled the boy from a narrow 6-foot deep hole yesterday. He was stuck in the hole for more than 1 hour. It originally held a power line pole. Firefighters say the boy was checked for injuries and appears fine. Tom Steiner joins us now with sports. Little off-court news from the world of basketball.
Yeah, the Final Four spotlight shining on Atlanta and New Orleans, but there was some media gathering in Columbia, South Carolina as the Gamecocks basketball program enters a new era. They get a highly regarded coach. Well, a week after Bobby Cremon said no to the vacant South Carolina job, the Gamecocks found their man in Eddie Fogler. Just yesterday, Fogler was hailed as the College Coach of the Year after leading Vanderbilt to the SEC title in a Sweet 16 appearance. Fogler, who reportedly signed a 5-year, $2.5 million contract, takes over a Gamecocks program badly in need of a jump start.
I leave a university and a program that was great to me for 4 years, and yet the situation here is something that I look forward to jumping into full blast with my family and coaches to bring a quality championship program to the University of South Carolina in the years ahead.
Fogler certainly has his work cut out for him there in Columbia. On the court, Final Four Saturday is already underway on the ladies' side in Atlanta. Later in New Orleans, the men take center stage. The nightcap should provide plenty of fireworks when 30-game winners Michigan and Kentucky tangle. In the opener, it's the Dean meeting up against his pupil. As CNN's Paul Crane reports, Dean Smith's Tar Heels will look to capitalize on their size and depth to avenge a Final Four loss 2 years ago to Roy Williams in Kansas.
Kansas will be going up against a much taller North Carolina team, and it's the Jayhawks front line which will have to step things up as it did against Indiana in the regional finals.
I'm going to go out and do the things that I know how to do, and if they're bigger than me, that means they just have to suffer the consequences. I'm not going to slow down or stop doing anything because they're bigger than I am.
Whenever I done played, everyone has been taller than I am, so it's nothing big to me.
We're trying to play 8 people, keep everybody fresh the way we want to play. Kansas probably is playing 9.
Against Indiana, which played without its injured center, Kansas used 11 players and made a whopping 54 substitutions. Now the Jayhawks face a Tar Heel team which has out-rebounded tournament opponents by more than 9 rebounds per game.
Everybody says all the things about how big they are, and they are big. They're much bigger walking through the airports than they are usually on the court.
KU's 6'10 starting center Eric Pauley and 7'2 sub Greg Ostertag have actually combined to put up slightly better tournament numbers than Carolina's 7-foot center Eric Montross. But then numbers don't always tell the real story.
See, the thing about that is they got 2 other 7-footers coming off the bench, so.
North Carolina has 7-foot Kevin Salvadori and 7'1 Matt Wenstrom ready for triple towers if it needs them against KU's Ostertag team.
These two teams are pretty even, but I think that we'll definitely try and take it inside as much as possible and see what happens.
I think we can have pretty good size inside, so we're going to just try to use that size and go inside.
So you think it's a big advantage then?
I think so, if we can get the ball to them.
We are here, and we for real.
And we're not here just to be here. We're here to win.
Beyond all the obvious reasons, Kansas would like to beat North Carolina for one other, and that is a win over the Tar Heels would give the Jayhawks the winningest four-year period in school history, one more than Larry Brown's Jayhawks, who won it all. At the Final Four in New Orleans, Paul Crane, CNN Sports.
The Big Easy doings wind up on Monday night at the Superdome with the national championship game. More on the Final Four happenings, plus Dale Murphy released by the Philadelphia Phillies today. That comes up on Sports Saturday, 7:30 Eastern Time. Natalie?
A complete look at the weekend weather is just ahead on Newsday. Stay with us.
This Final Four report is brought to you by Michelin, because so much is riding on your tires. And by Dollar Rent-A-Car, right on the airport, right on the money.
It's not just a high-performance tire. It's a Michelin. So it does things ordinary tires just can't do. The XGT series from Michelin.
I was already late for my meeting when my flight landed. Lucky for me, someone left a courtesy car. I had to get the Dollar Rent-A-Car fast. I knew they were right on the airport with low rates.
Welcome to Dollar.
Hello, I have a car rental reservation.
No problem. I'll just punch it up on the computer. Dollar Rent-A-Car is right on the airport, right on the money, with unlimited mileage and locations worldwide. Call your travel consultant or Dollar at 1-800-800-4000.
I see them all around the NBA, I see them all around the playground. Everybody's got them on. The in thing.
Bike, the official compression performance short of the NBA. Available at sporting goods stores nationwide.
Quick, give him that cookie, Sybil.
It's not a cookie. It's a fat-free Newton.
Fat-free? I'm sure we can wait him out.
A cookie is just a cookie, but Newtons are fruit and cake. Let it rain. Let it snow. You've got Michelin's all-season MXV4. The luxury performance tire with climate control.
Never seen before, some of the greatest treasures of the Ice Age, hidden in a secret grotto. Plunge into an ancient underwater world on National Geographic Explorer. 9 Eastern Sunday night, exclusively on PBS.
An update for you on the summit, which is about to begin. The number 2 player has arrived, President Bill Clinton, arriving in Air Force One, which has just set down in Vancouver. Russian President Boris Yeltsin arrived 2 hours ago, and the men are scheduled to get right down to work with a meeting scheduled to begin at 1:30 Eastern Time. They will meet today and tomorrow, and once again, CNN will continue to bring you extensive coverage of their meetings and what occurs at the summit in Vancouver. A rainy day in Vancouver, greeting the leaders of the two countries. Steve Kosch here to bring you up to date on the world's weather. Steve.
Natalie, very observant there. Notice the cloud cover, and you can see it here on our satellite picture, shows the clouds coming in. Had been some rain earlier this morning. Off and on rain is anticipated, although a few breaks in the clouds are anticipated this afternoon. You can watch the little clearing spot right here. Then more clouds are anticipated to come in for tonight and tomorrow, and more scattered showers in that area. Same thing for Washington, Oregon, and Northern California, areas of light rain. Heavier rains down in the southern plains, Texas, and Louisiana, and light amounts of rain and some snow is buffeting most of the northeast part of the country. Radar picture shows some of the more active showers in Texas and Louisiana, stretching northward, where more active thunderstorms are anticipated this afternoon. Light amounts of rain and snow in the northwest and northeast. Here is a look at the forecast high temperature map today. 50s, 60s, and 70s, even some warmer 80s and 90s are anticipated in some of the deserts of the southwest. Yuma, Arizona. Know anybody there? About 88 this afternoon. You might want to call them and let them know what their temperature is going to be. I'm sure they know it already. 30s and 40s are anticipated throughout a good deal of the Great Lakes in the northeast today. That is warm enough that you're going to see a continuation of the snow melting down, and that in combination with the areas of rain that they've received this past week and even today, there will be a continuation of the flooding problem there. The Susquehanna River, for instance, in Pennsylvania, the Rockaway River, the Passaic River in New Jersey, just a few more examples of the flooding threats on those rivers and streams and creeks. Forecast map for this afternoon. Here's your snow. It's It's been snowing a couple of inches already at Caribou, Maine. A couple more is anticipated. Rain on the coast, moving into the inland sections. Heavier thunderstorms in Texas and Louisiana, and the light rain in the northwest will continue into tomorrow. Even a couple of snowflakes at the higher mountain elevations. Nothing real significant as far as accumulations go, but you'll see that. Sunny skies with high pressure moving into the upper Mississippi Valley. Larger storms again tomorrow morning and into the afternoon hours. Really beginning to fire up with the heat of the day throughout a good deal of the southern states, and just leftover cloud cover in most of the northeast part of the country. In Alaska today, Barrow 5 degrees above zero, 48 degrees though at Anchorage and Fairbanks and also at Juneau. 82 for the Waikiki Beach, Honolulu, and 90 degrees at San Juan, Puerto Rico. That's a look at the weather picture for right now.
And thank you, Steve. We want to remind everyone we will continue to bring you up to date on the coverage of the summit. Newsmaker Saturday is coming up, but throughout Newsmaker Saturday, we will continue to show you these pictures, the live pictures of President Bill Clinton preparing to walk down the steps of Air Force One, and throughout the show in the next 30 minutes, we'll continue to take pictures to see what happens as Vancouver welcomes President Bill Clinton. He is scheduled to begin meeting with Boris Yeltsin immediately as soon as he arrives. Their first meeting scheduled to begin at 1:30 Eastern Time. That's just a few minutes from now. Boris Yeltsin arrived 2 hours ago during a driving rain. It looks like still cloudy skies there in Vancouver. Mr. Yeltsin many times offered an umbrella, but said no thanks, and he was all smiles at the beginning of this summit today. And that is it for this edition of Newsday. I'm Natalie Allen in Atlanta. Newsmaker Saturday coming up next on CNN Weekend. The topic, this weekend's summit in Canada between Clinton and Yeltsin. Stay with us.
Over 1 million species inhabit the Earth, each of them sharing the same ocean, land, and air. But the indifference of man could impact every living thing. Earth Matters turns its focus on our fragile planet with a hard-hitting look at people and the environment, confronting the issues and taking bold steps to create a greener world. Earth Matters, Sunday, 2:30 Eastern on CNN.
Folks, for the used car buyer, Stivers Lincoln Mercury continues to offer exceptional values. We now have 40 1992 Lincoln Town cars starting at $19,988. All are fully equipped and have the remaining 4-year, 50,000-mile factory warranty. Select from over 200 used cars, trucks, and vans at Stivers Lincoln Mercury, where we believe it, price sells cars.
Stivers Lincoln Mercury.
Some of our clients thought you had to be a big mega business to have an 800 number. But when I showed them the Iowa Network Services 800 service, they were really amazed. When they saw our low rates, they said, this could really add to my bottom line. How did I ever stay in business without it? Call me for more information on how Iowa Network Services can make it easier for your customers to reach you and to save you money. Iowa Network Services, the long-distance company with a difference.
This is CNN.
How much can the U.S. really do to help Russia?
We must do what we can, and we must not act now. We must act now, not out of charity, but because it is a wise investment.
Is Boris Yeltsin the right man to create economic and political stability in Moscow?
We must be concerned over every retreat from democracy, but not every growing pain within democracy.
Is it still a summit if only one nation remains a superpower?
From Vancouver, site of the Clinton-Yeltsin Summit, this is a special edition of Newsmaker Saturday with Charles Bierbauer.
Thanks for joining
joining us for this special edition of Newsmaker Saturday. As the curtain rises on the Yeltsin-Clinton summit and the mist rises over Vancouver Harbor, one I should point out we share with some boats, a helicopter, an occasional seaplane, and now and then a goose, in case you hear some background noise. Our guest is U.S. Secretary of State Warren Christopher. Mr. Christopher, thank you for being with us.
Good morning, Charles.
And I'm joined by my colleague Ralph Begleiter, CNN's World Affairs correspondent. Mr. Secretary, you and the President have talked about giving Boris Yeltsin, giving the Russian people a tangible aid package, something that they can actually feel. Mr. Yeltsin's on a short timetable. Will they have something? Will he have something demonstrative by April 25th?
Yes, I think he'll have a program that can be very meaningful. President Clinton has designed a program here that will get down to the people of Russia, will get out of the big cities and out to where the people really are. 75% of the program that President Clinton will be presenting to President Yeltsin is outside of Moscow. 75% of it is non-governmental. So the program has been designed to be tangible, down-to-earth, non-ideological. Although the program being announced tomorrow is only the first step in a series of steps, I think that President Yeltsin will be able to go home with something very important in his hand.
When you talk about this program, we hear different numbers. We don't know really what all it entails, but can you quantify it? Just how big a package is Mr. Yeltsin?
Well, I think I'll leave the numbers to the President, Charles, but let me tell you about the steps in the program. I think that might be helpful to your listeners. First, the President will be announcing these tangible programs today from the United States. And they will be followed by an augmented set of programs that he'll be recommending next week. He's quite deliberately waiting to do that until he meets with President Yeltsin to determine what kind of assistance, what kind of partnership, what kind of cooperation would be the most useful to the Russians. At about the same time, in the same time frame, other of our allies will be announcing augmented bilateral programs, just as the Canadians did yesterday and just as the British did. And then on the 14th and 15th of this month in Tokyo, the foreign ministers and the finance ministers will be meeting, that is, of the major industrialized countries, to determine how they can be helpful in this new partnership. And so there will be a series of steps, each one of them supplementing the others, and I think what you really ought to look at is what the total package looks like at the end of the line.
Mr. Secretary, in the last month we've seen an extraordinary period of turmoil in Russia, political, economic, and so on. Yeltsin's got a referendum coming up in April. If you were an investor in the United States or in any Western industrial nation, would you put money into Russia right now?
Yes, I think Russia is a very, very good investment for the United States in more ways than one. We have a tremendous stake in the future of Russia. I think the maintenance of democracy and free markets there are critical. The citizens of the United States have it in their deep self-interest to make sure that we have a continuation of the new Russia. If we were to lapse back, if it were to turn back to where it was before, you'd find us worried again about possible nuclear war. You'd find our defense budgets going up. You'd find we'd lost opportunities. So I think these investments are great investments for the people of the United States.
Polls show that Americans are a little skeptical of that. Are they going to get their money back, or are they going to get something back for their investment?
Well, of course, we all read polls, but the job of a person in my position, and particularly in President Clinton's position, is to do what you think is in the interest of the country, try to persuade the people of the country that that's in their self-interest. And that's what President Clinton will be doing, and I must say he has very good qualifications for doing that.
It's still a formidable sales job, though. One senator, Senator Dennis Deacon Sr., a Democrat, said this morning that he couldn't vote for this package, although he thinks it will pass. And you're talking, if I may, about a social safety net of some form for Russian people, where Americans are worried about losing their own social safety net.
Charles, we're primarily talking about partnership. We're talking about cooperation rather than the safety net. Let me just illustrate the kind of programs that President Clinton will be presenting. First, he'll be presenting a program to assist the Russians in privatization of their businesses. These are businesses that be auctioned, can be bought by the Russian people, but perhaps also by others. He'll be talking about enterprise zones or enterprise funds, which will enable people from the United States to make investments in Russia, to be able to make those investments successfully. He'll be talking about a democracy corps where people from the United States will be going to Russia to assist. Now, these are programs that are good for us, as well as being good for the Russians, their partnership and cooperation. So I don't think we ought to talk about safety nets. We ought to think about something that's in our own self-interest.
What about the cost of it? Is there, where are you going to get the money from? Since much of it is coming from already appropriated funds, but there is new money there somewhere. Are you robbing Peter to pay Paul? And if so, who's Peter?
Well, first let me say that the first tranche, that is the tranche that the President will be announcing, comes from funds that have been largely already appropriated, and deliberately so. The President wants a program that's deliverable. He wants one that he can get into the hands of the Russians as soon as possible. So that's where the emphasis will be now. As we get out beyond that, and the supplemental aspect of his program, unquestionably it'll mean going to the Congress and persuading the Congress, persuading the American people, really, that it's in our self-interest to have that kind of a program. But I think after they hear the story, I think they'll find it in their self-interest.
Or just to pursue that point, where does the money come from to provide for the Russians? Whose account is it coming out of?
Well, for example, in our foreign aid budget, there have been some shifting of accounts. There have been some things that are no longer necessary to do because of the end of the Cold War. In addition to that, you know, our defense spending is down very dramatically. Once again, contingent on there being a new Russia, contingent on our not lapsing back into the Cold War mentality. And so I think the funds will come from switching among accounts, doing things that we can do precisely because there is a new Russia.
Mr. Secretary, the Russians have complained about aid from the West in the past, saying a lot was promised and never got there. You've just indicated you're going to have to ask for some of the additional money in the future. Are the Russians going down a road here where they're getting another promise, which in 2 or 3 years will turn out to have been empty?
Well, one of the reasons, Ralph, we're starting in with funds that are already appropriated is to make sure that this is not just a program of empty promises. We understand that one of our main responsibilities here is to find programs that will actually get to the Russians. Now, a number of things have come along already. As you know, the Canadians and the British have put up additional money. Only yesterday, the so-called Paris Club entered into a debt restructuring with the Russians, which is a very important aid to them in seeking credit around the world. So there are tangible things that have already been done.
Before we take a break here, let me ask you about Mr. Yeltsin himself. Do you consider Yeltsin to be in a stable situation, aside from his political thing? I'm thinking in part, we keep hearing about the flamboyance of the man. The Bush administration was very, very wary of a Boris Yeltsin, treated him rather cavalierly at times. Is this a guy that you can really put all your
Well, he's shown himself to be a tremendously resilient figure. He's shown himself to have a faith in democracy and free markets that transcends, I think, perhaps anyone else in Russia. He is by far the best exponent, by far the best symbol of the things we're interested in free markets and democracy. You know, he had a half-an-hour telephone conversation with the President the night before last, which the President described as good. I read a transcript of that, or comments on it, and I must say he was right on the top of his form. So I think we're going to see a President Yeltsin here who meets with President Clinton, and they have a very good conversation. And so he is by far...
You don't think that you may be repeating the Bush mistake of hanging on to Gorbachev, that 6 months from now you may not have a Yeltsin, or you may have a continuing gridlock? You know, what's the long-range projection?
Well, what I think is he's by far the best opportunity we have at the present time. In contrast to Mr. Gorbachev, President Yeltsin was elected by the people. He is the only popularly elected figure in Russia at the present time. He's shown himself to be committed to democracy and market reform, so there's just no one else in Russia, I think, comes close to him as somebody that the United States would like to put their faith in.
All right, Mr. Secretary, while that helicopter lands, we'll take a break. We'll be right back. Stay with us, please.
Newsmaker Saturday is brought to you by Aetna, a policy to do more.
Here comes the baby. Push so we can get the baby's head out.
Give it a push now.
A little more. A little more. Give it a push now.
Okay, breathe through your nose.
Stay like that.
Oh, it's a beautiful
Here we
baby.
go.
I can't believe it.
Look at that.
Oh.
It's a little girl.
If you're like me and use bladder control protection, Johnson & Johnson has some great news for you. Free samples of new Serenity with Dry Layer Plus. To get your free sample pack, call today, 1-800-982-1500. Serenity Guards now have a new blue layer that pulls in liquid quicker and holds it, so I feel drier. And you will too. It has odor protection, and that's fresher. So call for your free sample, 1-800-982-1500.
My teeth are sensitive. They hurt.
That's a warning. That's why dentists choose Sensodyne to help stop the pain that can make you stop brushing, could lead even to tooth loss.
I got the warning. Then I got Sensodyne.
Trust Sensodyne, the dentist's choice for sensitive teeth.
What brings you to Clausen?
I'm looking to cook pickles. I'm a pickle cook.
We don't cook our pickles.
Why don't you cook your pickles?
It's just a matter of taste.
Unlike most pickles, Clausen pickles are never cooked. They're always cold, always crisp, always delicious.
Don't cook your pickles. That's funny.
NBA Sunday on TNT. Every time Patrick Ewing visits David Robinson, they throw a block party. Woo! Sunday, the Big Kids Jam. Knicks versus Spurs. Sunday at 8 on TNT.
The Vancouver summit, Secretary Christopher, is obviously not just about aid to Russia. There are related issues. Let's touch some of those bases if we can. Ralph?
Mr. Secretary, you've already had a vote with Russia at the United Nations Security Council in support of enforcement of the no-fly zone in Bosnia. Would you expect Russia to assist in enforcement against the Serbs should the Serbs continue to violate the no-fly zone?
Yes, I think they're squarely in support of that resolution. They've been very supportive up to this point in trying to help us bring that terrible conflict to an end, and I expect that they'll work with us in that way. You know, one of the most satisfying things about the new relationship for me is to find how useful it is to be able to deal with a Russia that's supportive of us. I remember when I was in government 12 or 13 years ago, and you couldn't engage them on any subject without getting into a big polemic. Now we're working with them on a whole range of problems. Certainly they're a great nation, and we'll sometimes disagree with them, and we shouldn't let that traumatize us. But by and large, what a pleasure it is to work with a cooperative Russia.
Would you expect to see Russian aircraft assisting in the enforcement of the no-fly zone against Serb aircraft?
At the present time, the no-fly zone is going to be enforced by NATO. That's the body that has the most capacity there. I think that's the body that will do it the best, and so present time I think is going to be a NATO exercise, and of course Russia's not a member of NATO.
One of the other problems that you've had with Russia in recent months has been Russia's continuing sales of technology, nuclear and otherwise, to Iran. Is that something you're going to discuss here in Vancouver?
Yes, it's something that I've discussed with Mr. Koscherev, the foreign minister, each time I've met with him, and indeed they've given us some assurances and insistence in that area. So obviously this can be a matter that will be discussed between us as two important sovereign nations, but just the ability to discuss it and to get cooperation from them in that area, I think, is a reflection of the new relationship.
What kind of cooperation have you received?
Well, we've received indication from them with respect to various sales that they won't make. I'm not going to be more specific than that this morning, but their cooperation has been good up to this point, and we're continuing to negotiate with them on other sensitive matters around the world.
Mr. Secretary, I want to bring you back to Bosnia. With the Bosnian Serbs now having rejected the peace plan, is this time to ratchet the screw considerably tougher against the Serbs?
Of course, I read that story in the paper this morning, as you did, that the Bosnian Serbs had voted against going along with the Vance-Owen plan, and found that regrettable. On the other hand, as I read the stories, they left the door open, and I think we ought to continue to try to persuade them to join this peace plan, not a specific plan, but continue to try to persuade them that it's in their self-interest as well as the world's interest to bring this slaughter to an end.
What powers of persuasion are you going to use that you haven't tried already?
Well, let me just go back to my statement on the 10th of February, if I could, and put it in a somewhat broader frame. We said there that we are going to try to bring the force of public opinion on the parties to try to bring them into agreement. Now, 2 of the parties have agreed, and only the Bosnian Serbs are standing aside. So I think the force of international public opinion through diplomacy, the Serbs do have some friends around the world, will be asking those friends to try to persuade them. Perhaps more tangibly, we'll be, I think, very sharply stepping up the sanctions regime. Ralph referred to the no-fly zone, which will start being enforced between, I guess it's now 6 and 13 days from now. So there's a whole series of things, and of course we're going to continue with very aggressive humanitarian efforts. We've already dropped more than 1 million meals to the people in Bosnia. So we're going to continue with that whole range of things in the hopes that'll persuade the Bosnian Serbs to come in.
Is it time to lift the arms embargo and help the Bosnian Muslims fight off the Serbs?
Well, as I've said, Charles, publicly, I think the time will soon come if the Bosnian Serbs have not agreed that we will start consulting with our allies about lifting the arms embargo. That won't be an easy consultation. I don't think we have the votes in the United Nations right now, as the President said the other day.
Well, President Clinton seems to be a little bit more reluctant. Is there a division between you and the President on that?
There's no division between us at all. What we both have said is that we will consult, but we recognize that the votes are probably against us now. There's some good reasons why our allies are reluctant in this area. They feel that if the arms embargo is lifted, that'll mean the end of the humanitarian efforts, simply because they'll become too dangerous. Now, there's a very important balance here, and it's not an easy one to strike. Will you save more lives by continuing the humanitarian effort, or is it more important to level the playing field? And that's what will be discussed between us and our allies, and I say it's a very difficult question. That's exactly what the President was saying.
A moment ago you said that the Serbs were not, appeared they had left the door open, and that you were going to push them not necessarily to support this specific plan. Is the specific plan to which the Bosnian Muslims have now agreed and the Croats dead, and you're going to have to revise it again in order to get everybody on board?
Ralph, I think the plan was always open to revision. 2 parties have agreed. For the 3rd party to come in, there may be some adjustments can be made. It's not a zero-sum game. There may be some adjustments that can be made to the satisfaction of all parties. There were when the Bosnians themselves came in, so I don't rule out the fact that there can be adjustments made. I must say the statement this morning I found regrettable, but we're not ready to give up.
But you won't be able to say that the 2 parties have signed on if you're going to change it again. You'll be back to nobody signing on, and you'll have to start getting on.
It's a negotiation.
Mr. Secretary, President Clinton, as we know, has a lot of domestic problems on his plate now. There are this whole array of international matters. Is he finding that perhaps he has to spend more time dealing with the world than he expected?
Not more than he expected, but perhaps more in this period than earlier. You know, this is a hinge point in American history right now, perhaps a hinge point in world history. Twice before in this century, perhaps not more than twice before, the United States was confronted with an important choice. After World War I, did we participate or did we draw back? We drew back, and much to our sorrow. After World War II, we participated. We brought the Cold War to an end. Now we have an opportunity to make sure that that Cold War stays in the place where it was. That is, that it is not revived. And so I think President Clinton feels that this particular task fully justifies the time that he's spending on it, and obviously more right now in this period than he had before. But still, the domestic economy and health care are his priorities.
We've just got 30 seconds. In this same kind of global complex, the World Trade Center bombing, is there any indication now that this was not just an ad hoc group, but some sort of state-sponsored terrorism?
You know, Charles, a government official never likes to decline to comment, but a judge in New York has entered an order preventing people from commenting on that particular bombing. I don't know the precise scope of the order, but I think I ought to err on the side of caution and not comment.
You're not suggesting that there's something there that will come as a surprise to us?
All I'm trying to do is obey the judge's order. You know, as a lawyer, I've gotten in the habit of obeying judge's orders, and that's what I'm doing this morning.
My orders, Mr. Christopher, are that we're out of time. I appreciate your being with us. Secretary of State Warren Christopher. Ralph and I'll be back in just a moment.
If this is how you think of Volvos, we may have the car to change your thinking. The Volvo 850 GLT.
Last time I was at the dentist, things were not going well. But doctor, I asked, I've been using baking soda. Why didn't it help? Maggie, he said, it's not enough. It's got to be in a great cavity-fighting toothpaste.
Now there's a baking soda toothpaste from Crest. We've added baking soda's fresh feeling of clean to the incredible cavity-fighting power of Crest, the dentist's choice.
So I brushed with Crest baking soda, and my next checkup was terrific.
New Crest baking soda. Nothing beats the protection of Crest.
There's no better feeling than that.
It's somewhat wilted. Stand by, 710.
Growing, growing, gone. Plants suffer from trouble as varied as nature itself. So turn to the source of advice and good ideas. Ortho. It's our nature to help.
Driving a Volvo usually inspires a certain sense of safety. Well, now we offer an additional sensation. The Volvo 850 GLT.
Ralph, it may be wrong to call it superpower summitry anymore, but certainly the scene is set here. Mr. Clinton, Mr. Yeltsin ready to get down to business. Interesting point of business, though, in Mr. Christopher's discussion of the terrorist question. It seems like a federal judge has given him some cover there, a New York judge.
It was intriguing. It almost seemed as though he wanted to say something else, but decided not to do so. He's been increasingly strident recently about Iran's role in international terrorism. I wonder if there's something lurking there that he'd like to talk about but feels he can't at the moment.
And seemed to have a sense that maybe they made some progress also on Iran in getting the Russians to curb their arms sales, although the Russians would love to sell more arms to keep their economy going.
And they're going ahead with nuclear technology sales to Iran as well that the U.S. doesn't like. It'll be interesting to see if there is any agreement or joint statement of some sort on that kind of issue at the summit.
Once this summit is done, clearly the biggest problem on the international plate is going to be Bosnia. We heard the Secretary of State suggest that perhaps he would like to lift the arms embargo against the Bosnian Muslims so that they could fight off the Serbs, but probably doesn't have the international support to do that and probably won't get it here.
That's a signal to the Serbs that it probably isn't going to happen anytime soon. It may also be an attempt by the U.S. to signal the Serbs that they really ought to come in and do something on the peace agreement, a sop to try to get them to come in and sign it.
I didn't see that happening. Yeah. And lastly, of course, we'll wait and see just exactly what President Clinton is going to deliver to President Yeltsin here at the Vancouver summit. More on this summit tomorrow on Newsmaker Sunday, when Frank Sesno's guests are Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney and White House Communications Director George Stephanopoulos. That airs at 10:30 a.m. and 5:30 p.m. Eastern here on CNN. Also, don't forget the Capitol Gang tonight at 7 p.m. The guest, Senator Alan Simpson. Now for Ralph Begleiter from Vancouver, British Columbia, I'm Charles Bierbauer. Thanks for being with us on Newsmaker Saturday.
For a transcript, send $5 to Journal Graphic, 1535 Grant Street, Denver, Colorado, 80203, or call 1-303-831-9000.
Steve Jones joined CompuServe because a friend recommended it. He bought his digital deck for the same reason, and it was well reviewed on CompuServe. So when Steve added surround sound, he got good advice, right online, from someone whose system seemed a lot like his. They compared notes, then Steve checked out flights and airfares. There's only one way to judge an audio system. CompuServe, the information service you won't outgrow.
Goodbye, old Regal. Hello, new Regal. The 1993 Buick Regal sedan. This story isn't unusual. There's a real love affair between Buick owners and their automobiles. And the latest J.D. Power & Associates initial quality study ranks Regal Sedan as the best car in its price class. The great American love story belongs to Buick.
Tonight, 25 years after his assassination, one question remains. Who really killed Martin Luther King? And why? Can this real-life murder mystery be solved? Both sides with Jesse Jackson, 9 p.m. Eastern tonight.
Hello, everyone. CNN Weekend continues now with a look at your weekend weather. Here's Steve Kosch.
Hi, everyone. It's time for a look at the forecast weather map for this Saturday afternoon. Sunshine galore in the southwestern states, approaching summertime heat patterns, getting close to 90 degrees in a couple of cities in the southwest, 70s and 80s throughout a good deal of Southern California. It'll be a little cooler in the northwest. We'll show you the forecast map in just a moment with the highs, but notice the rain, Northern California, Oregon, and Washington today. More extensive areas of rain with occasional thunderstorms, some of them fairly mean, in eastern Texas into Oklahoma as this low kicks right into the face of some moisture feeding up from the Gulf of Mexico. Light amounts of rain, you're going to need an umbrella if you plan a picnic anywhere out in the northeast today with some snow showers in the higher mountain elevations. Temperatures like this, 30s and 40s, most areas above the freezing mark, even though it may be in the 30s in the northeast, but that's still warm enough to allow the melting to take place of the snow, and the rivers and the streams and the lakes are fairly close to flooding, if not flooding in your particular area, so be careful. It's now forecast time for a couple of cities across the U.S. Have yourself a good weekend. The news continues here on CNN.
And when we come back, we will update the day's events in Vancouver, British Columbia, where Presidents Clinton and Yeltsin are conducting their first summit, followed by HealthWorks. Stay with us.
When I fall in love, it will be forever.
She touches people with her special warmth.
Or I'll never fall.
She's one of America's best-loved TV stars, Kathy Lee Gifford.
Many a tear has to fall.
Now, Heartland Music presents Kathy Lee Gifford in a beautiful collection of your all-time favorite songs.
Smile, though your heart is aching.
I have loved singing these wonderful songs. I hope you'll love listening to them.
Somewhere over the rainbow, I love you.
Kathy Lee puts so much feeling in every song.
There I've said it again. Que sera, sera.
You'll get 2 great albums filled with music you love.
Gonna take a sentimental
But remember, this special Kathy Lee Gifford collection is not sold in stores.
The mere idea of you.
Please stay tuned to order.
The longing here for you.
To order this beautiful Kathy Lee collection, call 1-800-257-1257 to save all COD charges and pay only $12.98 for records or cassettes or $16.98 for compact disc, plus $3 shipping. Use your credit card or send check or money order to Kathy Lee, P.O. Box 2919, Atlanta, Georgia. Remember, save COD charges by sending check or money order or use your credit card.
This is CNN.
East meets West in Vancouver, and money is on the agenda. President Clinton arrives in Canada with an offer of Russian aid, and President Boris Yeltsin is counting on it to help him win a power struggle back home. Hello, I'm Natalie Allen. HealthWorks is coming up first. We'll have the latest on the U.S.-Russian summit. All the players are now in place. President Clinton has arrived in Vancouver for 2 days of meetings with Russian President Boris Yeltsin. Today's talks will focus on economics, with Mr. Clinton proposing $1 billion in aid for Russia. Tomorrow, discussions will turn to security issues, including arms control and the war in Bosnia-Herzegovina. U.S. Secretary of State Warren Christopher says Russia has vowed to support peace efforts there, including the no-fly zone imposed by the United Nations.
I think they're squarely in support of that resolution. They've been very supportive up to this point in trying to help us bring that terrible conflict to an end, and I expect that they'll work with us in that way. You know, one of the most satisfying things about the new relationship for me is to find how useful it is to be able to deal with a Russia that's supportive of us.
President Clinton, Yeltsin, and their host, Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, will all meet within the hour over lunch. Mr. Yeltsin arrived in Vancouver earlier today. In brief remarks, he said communists want to reverse progress, but he added Western backing will allow him to proceed with democratic reforms. A U.S. Senator today predicted Congress will help Mr. Yeltsin by approving financial aid, but not without some opposition.
Can you tell us if the Senate is going to give the president $4 billion worth of aid to Russia?
I can tell you that I think they will, and it won't be with my vote unless I can find some control over the expenditures of that money. Some of it they want to use to stabilize the ruble. Now, I'm very sympathetic. I've been there 12 times through the Helsinki Commission, and I understand the severity of Yeltsin's and the precariousness of it.
Are you saying the votes aren't there right now?
No, I think they probably are, but not with this senator.
Canada will also present Mr. Yeltsin with a separate aid package. HealthWorks and more news coming right up.
If I said I found a breakfast that helps keep me going strong all morning, you'd say, what's this great new discovery? Well, it's not new. It's breakfast with grape nuts. I heard try it for a week and see how good you'll feel all morning. Well, you know what? I feel great. Turns out, grape nuts is a fat-free, natural energy source. And it tastes so good, so hearty.
Breakfast with Post-Grape Nut cereal helps keep you going strong all morning long.
Really, you've got to try it. Just give it a week yourself.
Driving a Volvo usually inspires a certain sense of safety. Well, now we offer an additional sensation. The Volvo 850 GLT. The Volvo 850 GLT was voted the best new car in the $20,000 to $30,000 class. Who are we to disagree?
Every day, in over 200 countries, the people at DHL deliver more packages overseas than any other air express company in the world. 26,000 of our own people ready to go out of their way to make sure your package doesn't. DHL, faster to more of the world.
For news around the clock, turn to Headline News. At the top and bottom of every hour, get updated national and world news featuring the day's top stories. Headline News. Check local cable listings for the channel number in your area.
Having trouble getting your child to read? You might borrow an idea from a Michigan school principal. Marilyn Kiesel came up with an offbeat way to get her students to hit the books at Hillman Elementary School. She promised to pucker up to a pig if they would read 1,500 books among them. The students went hog wild and read 3,908 books. Kiesel paid up. In front of the entire school, she gave a pig a peck while her students squealed. And that's the latest news for now. Stay with us for HealthWorks.
Will gene therapy lead to a painless cure for cancer? Do some cancer tests raise more questions than answers? And what little things do we do every day that someday may force us to come face to face with cancer? Cancer is the leading killer in the industrial world, and the longer you live, the more likely cancer may strike. Join us for an inside look at Cancer Today.
CNN Health Words.
Stop smoking. That's the simplest way to dramatically cut the cancer death rate. After that, things tend to get a little more complicated. I'm Andrew Holtz, and welcome to a special edition of our program from San Diego, where the American Cancer Society has brought together researchers and journalists for a battlefield assessment of the war on cancer.